Welcome to Fireside, where we sit down with successful founders every month in order to capture their stories, insights, and lessons learned along the way. Hit the follow button and subscribe to our newsletter for more, link in the description. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to explore this conversation.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So you're the founder and CEO of Untapped, which is a transformative coaching business that has generated $5 million in revenue, and that is one of the fastest growing in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because you told me the other day that entrepreneurship was not modeled in your family. So can you please tell me what that means and what that looked like?
Yeah, of course. To paint the picture, I'm from New Zealand. You can probably hear my Kiwi accent. Been away for 4 years, but still very strong. So 30,000 kilometers away, and I'm from New Zealand, and I'm from the very bottom of New Zealand, where the biggest dreams that you have when you come from Invercargill are to go to university and then go home, back to Invercargill. So that's where I grew up. And, so my biggest dream and ambition was to go to university. And when I got to university, that was the first time I ever heard the word entrepreneurship. So my dad was actually a lawyer. My mum was in insurance. My sister was a teacher. My other sister was a nurse or studied nursing. And so that was about the spectrum of what I thought was possible in career paths. I literally didn't even know what an entrepreneur was or a founder, or I'd never seen it modeled. I'd never seen anyone running a business. So I went about 3 hours north to a city called Dunedin, where I went to university, and this was the first time I actually understood what it meant to create something from nothing and to be a founder and entrepreneur.
And so growing up, you wanted to become a humanitarian lawyer, you said. Did that idea come from your dad because he's a lawyer, or?
So I think not so much the humanitarian lawyer. Of course, we see our parents and they do certain careers, and we want their approval. We think they're amazing, so we want to be like them. So we go on those paths. But for me, it really sparked humanitarian law. The idea of becoming a lawyer actually came when I was 15 years old. I went to a all-girls private boarding school. My parents had divorced, so I wrote a letter and said, I want to leave Invercargill now. I want to go to boarding school. And I'm at this boarding school, and it's very sheltered. There's 500 of us, super small school. And my mum was like, you know what? I think you need to experience the world. I think you need to see a little bit more about, how people live and how really how humanity exists. And so when I was 15, my mum took me out of boarding school and we went to Cambodia for about a month the first time we went. And for me, that was where this whole journey of kind of understanding what I wanted to do with my life and where humanitarian law came from and the desire to do that. So, actually what I experienced when I arrived is all these little kids, they came running up. We were working in an orphanage, or what's called a community in Cambodia. And all these little kids, when we arrived, they're running up and they're they're all getting things out of their pockets. And I'm like, what are they all doing? And they're all putting their coins together. And they come up and they run up to this little trolley, and then they bring me back this little parcel thing. I was like, what is this? And it was a snow cone. So it was the really dirty shaved ice with bright red liquid and condensed milk. So if you spent much time in Asia, that's glamorous. And in that moment, I got completely struck by these little kids who had so little, were so committed to giving so much. And they were so happy in doing that. And that for me was such a life-changing experience to realize that we're meant to give. We are designed to give, no matter how much you think you have or you don't have, that's our nature. And so from that place, I asked the founder actually one night at dinner, what could I do? Because I'd tried to teach English at the orphanage and I was terrible. And I bought bags and bags of shoes that were completely pointless. And he said, you could do politics and law, and that would be something that would make a real difference in these types of communities.
So that's how you ended up in law.
That's how I ended up in law.
So did you actually practice humanitarian law?
No. We were talking about this earlier. I got distracted, like many of us do. I got distracted by the shiny carrot. So, you know, I said I'm from a small town. I go to this university, and the big law firms, they come in. I had studied with honors and things. I was super academic as well. And they come in with shiny carrot, and take you out for these dinners, and they're like, you know, they promise you these big jobs. And so everyone's like, oh my gosh, Chapman Tripp, Russell McVeigh, these are the big firms in New Zealand. Wow. And so I just suddenly get super distracted by the shiny object of like, okay, and then I end up in a big corporate law firm. And it wasn't until my second year, and I was standing at the printer, and a junior lawyer who I was like mentoring said to me, so like, why did you do corporate law? And I was like,
I don't remember.
I don't remember choosing to do corporate law. In fact, you know what? I never wanted to do corporate law. And it was that moment, I think, like a lot of my life was like that. It was really realizing like I hadn't chosen my own path, not once. I kept doing what everyone thought I should do, or what was glamorous, or what was expected of me.
So that's very interesting, and we'll get back to that. So you ended up becoming a corporate lawyer, like M&A and that kind of stuff. And you like succeeded. You were very good at it.
Yeah, it was
top
good.
tier.
Good attention to very top tier firm. We worked a lot. I had some great experiences. I really did get some incredible like skills and exposure as a junior lawyer for like 3 to 4 years, and it was amazing experience, and like the professionalism of it was incredible. But yeah, I think I knew the whole time it wasn't really what I wanted to do.
So was there a particular moment or trigger or?
I think for me it was like a journey. I think I had this kind of, you know, I talk about sometimes your like soul whispers and then it starts like screaming. It was more like that. It was
intuition.
Yeah, it was just this knowing that I wasn't in the right place, but I also had absolutely no idea what that right place was. And so I started seeking answers. I would go to lots of events like this, loads of events and seminars and workshops, and work with coaches just to like understand more about myself and what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to be known for, what I wanted to make this impact. And eventually I ended up working with this really great coach, actually. She used a lot of like design thinking, and we came up with 3 career paths, and it was like COO, organizational psych, or running a coaching company. And she's like, if you couldn't fail, what would you do? And I was like, I think I'd do the coaching company, right? And she was like, okay, let's do that. And yeah.
So, but this is very interesting. But what were these 3 career paths based on?
So
like your personality or?
Yeah. So, you know, if you're familiar with design thinking, it's like a really creative process that pulls. It was like the first career coach I've ever seen using this methodology. It comes out of like, it's a certain methodology where you take a lot of feedback. So she worked with, it was such a cool process. She worked with like people from my work, my best friends, my partner at the time, me, and she'd get all these insights about who I was and how I showed up and how I made a difference and how they experienced me. And in the end, we figured out like Briony loves people and process, because I'm like actually super systematic as well, and that's what we came to. Like that's what she loves. She loves people and process. And so what career paths involve people and process? And it was like COO, you know, ops and still managing people.
Operations.
Organizational psych, and coaching is also the journey of coaching is you create transformational processes for people to transform in their journey. So that insight was incredible, because the thing I figured out when I started designing Untapped was like I got obsessed with curriculum and transformational processes, because I would always figure out like, okay, if person A wants to get from here to here, what goes in the process and the skills and the mindset to transform that person. Like, so it was like, she was incredible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, but you're someone who's you seek certainty is what you told me and what is obvious, right?
Yeah.
How did you reconcile the idea of starting a business as opposed to leaving, you know, a corporate job that you were very successful at?
I went to a lot of Tony Robbins seminars.
Tony Robbins.
I actually did go to Tony Robbins seminars, but no, it's a really good question. I think that was terrifying for me, and I would be totally lying if I was like, oh, it was just easy and I just jumped. Like it was the absolutely hands down the most terrifying thing I've ever done. I worked my way up to it for like, I'd say a year. So I kind of started things on the side. So I had a little idea. I started saving some money. So I had a little runway. I heard on a podcast or whatever, you know, that's what you do. You have some money saved. So I started doing that. And, you know, then I was testing the idea, and in the end, what I really came to is like, I had spent my whole life driven by certainty. Like everything in my life was about having the right outcome, following the plan, being perfect, having certainty. And then it was about rewiring not just what I was doing, but who I was becoming, and about really starting to anchor. And you know, we talk about our values, but we meet our needs above our values. And so I had this need of certainty. So I had to make the desire to contribute more important than just being certain on my path. And so it was really anchoring. I spent a lot of time like visualizing the impact I want to create. And if I was, you know, there's the 5 Regrets of the Dying. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but they go and interview people about like what they regret at the end of their life. What would they do differently? And so many people said like they would just go after their dreams or not care what people think. So I read all these books and I would really think about, okay, it's the end of my life. What are people going to say to me? I would write like obituaries, like Briony was a great person. And so over time, I really started to rewire like that my desire for contribution was greater than my desire for certainty. Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up, because certainty is a need for pretty much every human.
Yeah, of course.
It's actually a niche and a minority of people who are comfortable with risk.
Yeah.
Not the majority. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was definitely micro ways that I created certainty. And I think that's really important, is you can find small ways that you can, if you're trying to take a big leap of faith or do something scary, there are ways you can create safety for yourself. Everyone has different needs that they need. So, you know.
Create certainty.
Yeah, of course. Like some routines. Like one thing I used to do was like public accountability, because I'd had so many deadlines and a team and all these like milestones. When I was completely on my own, I was like, how am I going to create certainty for myself? And so I would like declare to my community, okay, I'm running a workshop next week, and then start to actually like have some consistency. Yeah. Okay,
so you start working on the side on your new project, and you ended up quitting and just jumping at some point.
Yeah.
And how were the early days of Untapped?
Yeah, of course. So there was a few things that I did. So I actually used to run some little workshops in a cafe downtown. I didn't have the branding of Untapped yet, so they were just these awful PDFs. I don't know if Canva existed, but they were just these horrible PDFs that I made. They had little stars in the background. It was called Why Wednesday. So I would go to this cafe, and in the beginning, I just asked like my friends if they would come, basically. I made a Facebook group and like invited some people, and so just my best friends came pretty much. And that's how I started doing stuff, you know, experimenting, testing this idea. I was still working, so I used to go at 7 a.m. to this cafe. And then my friends came, and I just showed up every Wednesday. Why Wednesday? It was all about finding your purpose, your soul, your passion, mainly for young professionals, like figuring out what we were doing. And we just have a conversation, ask some questions. And so I ran these workshops, and I'll be there, like 1 person, 5 people, 10 people. I was there every Wednesday for like a year and a half. So I have quite good discipline and consistency sometimes, not all the time, but. And this workshop like kind of took off, and people were telling people about it. Lots more people were coming. I was like, oh, this is great. And so then, of course, everyone wanted to know like, what's next, right? So I was like, what's next? Yes, good question. I'm not a strategist, by the way. I'm totally driven from my heart and my soul. So strategy is like, oh yes, that would be good to have a business strategy for. I didn't know what a funnel was, so like. I was just like, where am I taking these poor people? You know, they're like, I've had these amazing enlightened moments. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make a program. And so I created a 8-week transformational program for young corporates to figure out what they wanted to do next in their career. But more than career coaching, more about who you're becoming and what you have to let go of, you know, similar to me, what you have to let go of to get there. And so I was running this program while I was still working as well. And then I realized I needed like a business name. So I put together some little, I sent around an email actually. I think my bosses must have been like, are you actually doing any work? By the time I left, they were probably like, yeah, good riddance. Like she literally runs her business out of the office.
They noticed.
Of course, yeah. I would have podcasts in my ears and I'd be sending emails about all sorts of things.
Is it okay if this video is public?
Yeah, all good. I think they knew it. Yeah. They and so I had these names of the business, like business names, and it was like, oh, they were so bad. They were so bad. It was like, wing woman and like all these like and I sent them around my girlfriends at the law firm. I'm like, hey, what do you guys think? They're like, yeah, keep going. Like, you know, I don't know if you've like cracked it yet. I was like, okay, cool. And then one morning I went into the office and it was like 7 a.m. obviously using my office as a co-working space right now. That was my thing. And I went in and I started writing on the whiteboard, like, what is this really about? Like, whatever I'm creating, it's about potential, it's about humans, it's about, infiniteness, it's about possibilities, it's about dreams, it's about, and then Untapped. And it was just like the name, and it was like, and that was it. I knew that was the moment, that was the name. And the vision was there. It was about helping people explore that deeper connection to themselves to then create the impact they want to create. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now Untapped is a true business, is a real business.
Yeah, we just did it.
Yeah. So was it difficult in the beginning?
Of course. Like it didn't. So then I had this thing called Untapped. I'm making like $200 a week coaching. Very, got my $10,000 saving. I'm like, all right, now's my moment. It's now or never. I've been to my Tony Robbins seminar. I've come back. I actually did do that. I've come back I've walked on fire. I'm infinite. I'm possible. I can do this. And so I walk it. I write my resignation letter. I'm like, okay. And I'm literally like, come into my boss's office. I'm like shaking, sweating. I was like, I'm going to resign now. And he knew that I was never going to stay there long term. He just, he just knew that I was meant to do more. And then he looks at me. He's like, are you sure you want to resign? I was like, yes, I would like to resign. And he's like, do you want to do 3 days a week or 4 days a week? But I knew that didn't exist in the law firm. There's no such thing as that. Yeah. You just work 5 days.
8 hours anyway.
Of course. So I was like, no, thank you. I want to resign. And he's like, okay. And so, that was, I kind of worked out the end of my time there. And then I left. And I remember leaving, like literally leaving the doors of the law firm and realizing how much my entire identity was attached to being a lawyer. Because the moment I walked out those doors, I was like, oh, I'm a nobody. Like, yeah, I'm a coach.
You didn't have the same title.
I didn't have the title.
Or the same certainty
anymore. Of course. And that was like, for me, that was like really about discovering like, who am I free from all these labels, all these titles, who do I get to design myself to be?
Okay.
But yeah.
So yeah, that's very, very interesting. I was able to visualize what you were describing, by the way.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
You with the door and.
Yeah, it's just like it was like this whole shedding of wow, that's done. That chapter's done. Yeah.
So the early days of Untapped.
Yeah. So.
Typical challenges. Was it easy to find customers?
So customers was interesting because I had a really good professional network and I love community building. And I think I'd always contributed to a lot of people in my network and my community. So that was they all helped me. Okay. And people just, they were so kind. People would tee up me to speak at their banking place or their accounting firm or their law firm. So everyone was my champions. And that was inspiring and humbling, and I was so grateful for them because I had nothing really. I think I could afford to go out for one coffee a week basically at that point. So that was pretty cool to have that kind of community. And that my message on that is look after the people around you. You have no idea when they'll help you out, but just always be contributing because eventually at some point, yeah, you're going to need something back. So yeah, that was, did I lose my, we're all good. The first day of self-employment. This was when laptop lifestyle was self-employment laptop lifestyle was kind of taking off. It wasn't big yet, but I remember taking a photo of my laptop at this cafe, my one coffee a week that I could afford. And I was I just thought it was a classic I've made it moment, but then I put my phone away and I posted it so excited to be going after my dreams, And then the reality hit me I knew I was a really good coach. I'd changed a lot of lives already. I had so many testimonials. I was solid that I was a good coach. But I was shit, I don't know how to build a business. I actually had no idea where to start. Marketing, anything. Because really all I'd been doing was networking and running the programs through my network.
And you were the only coach.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you needed to hire coaches.
Well, of course.
And build a business around it.
Yeah, of course. Get more leads, learn how to market, do finances, do taxes. I was wow, I literally know nothing. And so I hired a business coach. And that's why I love coaching. Yeah. I was cool. And the interesting thing I found in my journey is I think some people, and later as I've met more entrepreneurs, I feel there are some entrepreneurs who truly create from nothing, they really don't want any of the templates or the blueprints. Because of who I was and how I had learned, I needed blueprints, right? I had a vision and I had heart and soul, but there was no way I was going to fly with nothing. So it was like, as soon as I got systems, like, you know, I used to do sales calls and they'd go for like 2.5 hours. Anyone who still does sales calls this way or doesn't know why you're not converting, I would do these sales calls for like 2.5 hours because a friend would tell a friend that I was amazing. I was like, cool, let's have a call. And then they'd be like, Briony, this was so great. Thank you so much. It's been lovely. And then they'd hang up and I'd never hear from them again. I was like, what on earth? And they'd never convert because basically I solved their problem on the sales call.
You gave all of the tips. You gave all the solutions.
So I had no idea what sales was.
Yeah.
So anyway, I learned this like I have
to give just enough.
Yeah, of course. Create a vision, leave a gap, you know. No idea. Wow. Just coach. Anyway, so an early business coach taught me this 8-step formula. Mm-hmm. Well, I made millions with that 8-step formula. I just needed a formula to follow. So I think the early days were very, very steep learning curve. Yeah. And
so how long did it take you from the beginning until you say like you reached the peak of the company, let's say?
Like 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. To its like absolute like impact. I think the first year I was like surviving. All I wanted to do was replace my salary as a lawyer. Mm-hmm. That was like my biggest goal. Most of the coaches in the industry at the time, this was like 10 years ago, so coaching was pretty new and super new in New Zealand. Like no one was coaching, you know. Anyway, I basically really wanted to. I think the thing was like you couldn't make more than 36,000 was like the industry standard. Most coaches never make more than that. That was the thing. So I was like, I would like to beat that. So I wanted to replace my salary as a lawyer. And the second year I got like a little bit more systematized. Like I figured out that one-to-one wasn't scalable. And so I made group programs and like more community stuff. And in the third year, it was when like we really took off. And that's when I started getting team and having better coaches and like understanding.
Okay. Yeah. So how many coaches did you have at the peak?
So at the peak of the business, we had 12 coaches. And some of them were full-time, some of them were part-time. Mm-hmm. They were all students of our work. So they all had done our work and they were amazing. They were like, just like evangelists of the mission, you know? They were truly incredible. And for me, that was like such a joy learning how to train the coaches. And like, that's where I really found my leadership as well. Cause like my passion is coaching. Mm-hmm. It was pretty cool building a movement, I would say. Yeah. I was really, really good at company culture and leadership and really bad at management. So bad at management. Like our team would be like, what's the vision? What's my KPIs? What am I meant to be doing? I was like, oh no, just keep changing lives, everyone. Everyone was like, okay, let's keep going. So yeah.
Well, it worked. So
it did.
Okay, so then you moved to Portugal at some point and how did that affect the business?
Oh yeah. So it was interesting. So my partner who's here, Delaney, we had existed in the New Zealand market. And New Zealand's a small place, for those who don't know. It's like 5.5 million. So it's a small country. So claiming like fastest growing company in New Zealand, well, I have to put in context, it's a small country, but I'll take it because it was very cool.
Don't ruin the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. But it really, at that point, we had a lot of online mentors, like a lot of people from the US and things that we'd been trained through because that's where we got a lot of our inspiration. And so we bought a piece of land, a property in New Zealand, and we went to start building. And the architects were like, I've never seen a couple so sad about starting the next chapter of your life. And we looked at each other and we're like, yeah, this is not our dream. This is not what we want to be doing. You know, we want to go, we want to travel, we want to take our skills abroad, we want to meet our mentors. We had such a big dream for what we wanted to do. And so anyway, we moved to Mexico first, and we moved to Costa Rica.
Okay, so you realized you didn't want to build a house when you were building a house?
Yeah, of course. So we were like, yeah. And that was a moment around like, again, this is kind of like my whole soul, my whole life's journey. It's like, how did I end up back here doing someone else's dreams, right? Like, I'm not kidding. I'll just paint the picture. My dad is standing there with his camera, and Delaney and I are like this in front of the property, like, and he's like, what? And we're like, oh, and then we left, and I was like, oh, this is my dad's dream. He still messages me about, you know, the land's still there if you want to come home.
So you kept the land, you stopped
We
building.
still had the land.
Okay. And then you went to Mexico.
We went to Mexico. Yeah. So we could still work the team in Mexico. It's like 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. Then we go to Costa Rica. That was like we lived in the jungle. It was not so fun. It was this, trying to run a business and a digital business from a place that doesn't really get Wi-Fi was rather challenging. Like, picture this. Oh, it's like pouring rain. The Wi-Fi's out in our jungle house. I'm on a quad bike in the pouring rain to get to the co-working space to run a coaching call. Like, it's not so suitable. So we survived there. I think 3 months we lasted there, right? And everyone's just there to surf and chill. And then we got invited to an event in Croatia, and this was an entrepreneurs event. And we're sitting at the dinner table, and there were like 2 or 3 people, and they were awesome. They were just cool. They were young. They were building. They were creating. And we were like, these are our people. Where are they? And they're like, we all live in Lisbon, Portugal. And we're like, Lisbon, Portugal. Okay. Definitely wasn't on the cards. Not many Kiwis come here. It's like most go to London. And so we packed up our stuff. We went, Costa Rica was in rainy season, but we stood to go get our stuff. We went back 5 days, packed up, and got on a plane to Portugal. We'd never been here, neither of us. We had to figure out our visas, all of that. And then we landed here and we're like, then we had to rebuild. Portugal, New Zealand time zone's 12 hours. So we couldn't keep the team.
So I'm curious how what happened to the business when you did that move? And
pretty rough. Yeah, so we let go of the team pretty much on one Zoom call. It wasn't great. It was just like, that's what we had to do. I've had a lot of stories like, was that the right thing? Was I failing? Was I self-sabotaging? But ultimately, it just came down to like, we had our dream and our desire, and so it wasn't going to work. So
you let off the whole team in one Zoom call?
Yeah. 0 to hero, that's me.
0 to hero.
That's my personality. So anyway, then we get here and we go to this big entrepreneurs event. And I think what's really interesting about this experience is like shiny object carrot stuff again, Everyone there, it's about scaling, growing, hiring more. So we're like, hiring, we need to hire more people. And we're like, where does everyone hire from, And everyone's like, recruitment agency and these people. And so we start hiring all these people in Europe through agencies and all sorts of things. And it was just not the company culture that we had built. Like, we had a team that we built from the ground up that were students of our work, that were evangelists in our work, that were complete massive culture ads. And suddenly in Europe, we have a team doing stuff, but we don't have the company culture.
I see.
So it was a really hard lesson. And coming back to like our truth of what we already know, which is like, we knew what worked. We just got distracted and we got fearful and we got into scarcity of like, we don't have any people, we need more people. We're not meant to be doing this admin stuff, because we were in the back end again doing everything. And so, we made decisions out of fear and scarcity versus possibility and what we were committed to. And so the team was different. We lost massive amount of revenue, like probably a third of our revenue, maybe even a quarter in the first year we were here. So it was pretty rough. We also had to facilitate events through the night from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. because all of our community that had bought a 1-year mastermind were in New Zealand and Australia. So we're up all night, like Delaney will do 5 minutes and I'm on a blanket on the couch and then I'm like, my turn. And then we swap, I was like, what have we done? We've just absolutely mirrored this. And there was a lot of times of like failure and questioning why we'd done this. So it was definitely challenging.
So where is the business now? And where's the business now?
Yeah, good questions. So I'd say we're still rebuilding to figure out what we want here. I think last year we ran our first like in person. We used to do a lot of like live events and trainings and things in New Zealand. So last year we ran an event in Lisbon called New Era Entrepreneurs, and that was really coming back to our roots of like what we do. We've rehired a few people, which is awesome. We've got like a very streamlined team now, so it's like super streamlined. And I'm really reimagining what it looks like to build here and build in Europe, and coming back to our truth of how we want to build. But
so it's very interesting because you essentially sacrificed a business and revenue for your passion and So how do you view that in retrospect, and are there any regrets?
Yeah, it's a good question. I believe that ultimately the founder, like, this is part of holistic entrepreneurship and what I stand for. It's like, so we already sacrifice so much as founders. Like, we already give our whole soul and we give everything to our businesses. And part of what I really believe is that you still fully have to be in alignment and truth with what you need and what's true for you. And like, I don't regret. I think maybe we could have done it better or differently. There's definitely lessons. Maybe someone else could have run the New Zealand chapter. Like, there's so many ways we could have done it differently. But I also know that all of it was just lessons for me to figure out. And ultimately for us, like, our relationship and our future is what we chose to prioritize. And we knew that we could rebuild. So one thing I did do when we got to Lisbon, when I was like, wow, we've really put ourselves in like no man's land over here. There's two things we did actually. D is great at tech and stuff, and he set ads live because we realized that we aren't a super American culture. Like, we're coaching company wise, we're not like a big rah-rah American culture. We have like a very particular style. Like, New Zealand has a very particular way of doing things. And so D put some ads live in Europe to see like, where does our Untapped message resonate? It was super cool. Danish, love us, Swedish, German, little bit UK, but not so much. So he just like, the Finnish love us, got loads of Finnish clients, right? So it's super interesting. He just put these ads live and was like, put it out there and see like, where do we fit here? Because we've grown up in this tiny context in New Zealand that we know and we grew up in. And suddenly we're like in this big pond that we don't know where we fit. So that was really cool to see like where the message landed.
So what is the message that, and how is it different from the US? Like in a
So
nutshell?
I think for us it's more about impact, right? We're super impact orientated. Like, whatever you grow and become as a person or a founder or a creator or a human is in order to contribute to the whole. Not so, it is about, you know, bettering yourself and being better, but it's also about humanity. And that message is a little bit different than self-made, multi-millionaire, whatever. You know,
100%.
there's a lot of that. So it was just testing that and seeing where that fits.
I can see why Nordic cultures believe in that.
Of course.
Social
and
democrats.
Finnish, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the egalitarian.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was big.
100%.
And when I went to speak, I actually went to speak in Finland almost like a year and a half ago now. And when I was there, I noticed some huge similarities to New Zealand culture. And it really, I got it straight away. I was like, oh, wow, they are also dealing with cultural context things that we were dealing with in New Zealand.
That's interesting. You are writing a book currently about holistic entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I don't want to tell anyone about the book because then I have to make sure that we finish the book.
Give us just enough so we'll buy it.
Okay. Opening chapter. There I was in the server room, hiding at the bottom of the co-working space, completely breaking down, tears rolling down my face. My whole system feels overwhelmed. My heart feels heavy. I feel so stretched. I feel like my mind's scattered, and I simply don't actually know if I can carry on.
I'm definitely going to buy it. No, truly, that's a really cool teaser. Yeah. Nothing else we can know about it for now. Release date, maybe? Yeah.
So it really is about how you prioritize yourself and how you put yourself, I think, as a lot of founders, service-based industries, I don't know what industry everyone's in, but if you're in well-being or coaching or services, you give a lot. And a huge part of my journey was learning how to receive and learning how to put myself at the front of my line. Everyone was in my line. Serve everyone else. And from those moments, I really learned that like the only way to be have sustainable success in entrepreneurship is to understand what you need and honor your own needs first and create from that context. And so the book is like, how do we do that? Right? While still being a good leader and a good mom and a good partner and a good whatever else. And so it's like the practical tools to really thriving as an entrepreneur.
Nice. And I was also curious before we give the floor, do you have one tip to give to someone who likes order and certainty and wants to let go, or is thinking of entrepreneurship, or even just let go in daily life, be a little relieved of that stress?
Yeah, we all have like Gay Hendricks wrote this book, The Big Leap, right? And it's all about, we all have these upper limits around how much we think we can like impact things, how much money we can make, how much time off we can have. And I think a lot of us, for those of you who like really feel like you want to let go and have a little bit more fun, have a little bit more joy, one of the things I see working with founders is like their schedules are jam-packed and they're back-to-back. They're achievers. You don't run your own thing if you don't have a desire to achieve more in the world, right? And so working around letting go and creating a bit more space and play is really about, can you raise that upper limit? Can you notice where your thermostat's at? Because you have a thermostat for how much time off you're allowed each day, how much fun you're allowed to have. I mean, mine used to be like, I would go get a massage, but I would like sprint to the massage, 60-minute massage only, and then sprint back. Right? It was like, wow, that's relaxing. So then it was like about raising and allowing myself more time, more space. Go get a 90-minute massage. And so for you, if you're in that space, it's like, can you look at your schedule? Can you allow yourself just that little bit more joy, that little bit of time off? And I would also recommend not doing a drastic, like I have to take a whole week off, right? Because how your nervous system calibrates is what's called titration. And it's about expanding capacity. So maybe it's about putting half a day. I used to have a back-to-back calendar as well. And now I've got like one thing a day, like this, 1 or 2 things a day. I'm flat out. So it's like really about creating that space for yourself so you can start to explore, feel more joy, have more time off, and yeah, you'll find the play in all of that.
This is a great note to end this chat on. Thank you very much, Briony.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I hope you've prepared your questions, because now it's your turn to do the job.
Yes.
Just behind you there.
Thanks for telling us your story. You mentioned about the 8 step. That was really successful. Curious just to know what
it was great. You want the 8 steps, or yeah? Yeah, sure. I can riff the 8 steps. I mean, I do have a podcast episode on it because I really do attribute the 8-step formula was like made me millions, and I think I would still be on 2-hour coaching calls without any money. So how it actually goes if you really want a 101. So when you're thinking about, this is a quick sales riff, right? Sales is you're creating a gap for people as well, but sales, for me, sales is service. So it's really thinking about how can I serve this person? And that doesn't mean just giving all your gifts, but it means creating a safe container and conversation. What industry are you in? Okay. So really having the context of like, this is like honoring this person. They've taken the time to talk to me. They've, sometimes what they're talking about is vulnerable about their business or themselves, and really creating that safe space. When you come to the call, 8 steps, let's try to remember them. You always pre-frame, so you want to lead. Sales is leadership. They're looking to you for leadership. They've come to you. Don't faff around and talk about the weather and things. Like build rapport and then pre-frame where we're going to go. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to cover. So that's like your first step. Then you need to explore their challenges. Heaps of positive people. Anyone who's super positive, you're like, oh, I just want to talk about their vision. That doesn't resonate for them. They're in pain and they're in challenges, or they wouldn't be sitting in front of you. So you need to take enough time to sit in the conversation with them around what their challenges are and how that's impacting their life and business. So that's step 2. And then you want to know what their vision is. That's the fun part. What are you here for? Who are you becoming? What are you creating? Right? You want to find out there's a reason that they don't have that life. There's a reason they don't have that business. That's why they're sitting in front of you. That's called the gap. You want to understand the gap. So the gap looks like, what have you tried to solve this problem? One of the key questions for me, what other coaching programs have you done? Because if they're like, I've done every program and everyone's a terrible coach, they're not the client for me, right? So the gap is where you figure that out. And then you want to kind of reiterate and get commitment. Okay, this is where you are. This is what you've said you want. Are you ready to do something about this? Are you ready to make an investment? Are you ready to create change? Yes, I am. Okay, cool. You reiterate. Ask them if they're, one thing in sales is it's not just an immediate, like, you're a yes, like, okay, yes, it's you're testing them as well, right? Just remember that. That's like you're vetting them and they're vetting you. So that's just about, at that point, really creating like, hey, this has been an awesome conversation. In my opinion, I do think I can support you to solve this, or if not, refer them on. So it's a yes from me, right? Because a lot of people in sales, they're like, biggie, needy energy. Needy's creepy. Don't be needy, right? It's like, so it's a yes from me. So I'm a yes to supporting you. Is this something you want to commit to? Yes. So that's buy-in. And then you make the offer. And never be like, I'm going to send you an email with all the details. So you know what I mean? Ghosted on that. It's like, and then they never reply. So you do the offer on the call, right? So then that's the offer part. And then you may need to manage some objections, concerns about money, things like that. And that's the 8-step formula. And you will... I can make sure we send you the podcast interview, but or where I go through it in detail, but you will know when you have a conversation that hits all those points. And then you will know when you have a conversation that you leave and you're like, I don't know why, it was just weird. Something didn't stick, or I don't know where they're going to go, like my old calls, right? So yeah, it's a game changer. And it really is like any it's just the other thing people sometimes feel weird about sales scripts. I don't really teach like scripts. I teach people how to ask those questions for sure, but I teach the process, because any communication framework, when we're really clunky, it's like going to have a hard conversation around a boundary with someone. Frameworks help, right? Frameworks, you learn them and you feel like a total geek and you don't know what you're doing. You're like, right, I would like to set my boundary, please, and this is my need, but then you get better and you get more natural at it. And so this is exactly the same philosophy. It's like you'll feel clunky and then you get better at it, and then the framework becomes subconscious and you become masterful in having all types of conversations, sales being one form of communication. So yeah, there's 8 steps. I hope you make millions and change lots of lives in the circular economy and businesses.
Transformative. Ella.
Earlier on, you mentioned about when you started with early careers that you asked kind of who are you becoming and who are they becoming? And I guess I put the question back to you as a result of this journey, who are you becoming?
Good question. Yeah, that's my favorite thing, is constant, me and ChatGPT at the moment. So yeah, I love that question, who I'm becoming. I've been in an interesting journey thinking like, wow, I'm evolving so much. And I am. Last year, my partner and I had 2 miscarriages, which was really challenging. But we're becoming parents. I already am a mum. But yeah, so that's who I'm becoming. What I'm figuring out is how my mission and my service fits with motherhood. And for me right now, they feel different and they feel separate. And I'm really in finding expanders. I went to a super cool event the other night with a mum. She was speaking and she said these, I was like, I swear, I mean, she had like angel children, so I hope our kids are like that. But they were just playing for like 5 hours. And I messaged her afterwards. I was like, wow, such an example of like mums that can go out there and still serve. So that's who I'm becoming, is a mum with a mission, and, knowing that my mission is not separate from motherhood. Yeah, thank you for the question.
I would like to ask you about the hiring process. You said that in New Zealand, like your employee were people that you knew from your coaching, and then like when you moved to Lisbon, then it was a big different thing. Can you unpack a bit that, and how do you hire people? How do you find a good candidate? Because I guess it's not like you're hiring somebody and doing something automatically. You're hiring somebody that needs to do your job, that I guess is very creative, problem solving, and a lot of things.
Yeah, for sure. So the initial talent pool that we had in New Zealand was huge, right? Because we had so many students and alumni. So I didn't really know any other way to hire. So I just hired from our community because they needed to know our work. So when we got to Europe and we didn't have that, that's why I went to the recruitment agency. And the mistake I made there is it's not necessarily the skill set, it's the values, right? You can teach people skills, but it's really hard to teach people values. So our company values are like really well defined. This is also something I notice when I go into other companies. I feel that people make them once and then they sit in a Google document and no one ever opens them again. Company values, right? It's like I just was doing a deal with someone and I was like, cool, can I have the company culture because I'm going to help them build a program thing, and they sent me this screenshot, like a screenshot of company values, and I was like, what? Like, so we have a full manifesto, like what is the value, what is the belief of someone who has that value, what does that value look like in practice in the company, what's the antithesis of that value, what does it look like not to honor that value, and then a video from me as the founder, and we have 5 values. So it's a whole training. Like when someone gets onboarded, they go through the quiz. They have to do a quiz, you know? They learn all the values and then they get quizzed on the values. And then the next best step that we did that is huge for us, so we hire through those values. That's like critical. And then skill sets next. And then, because like I said, you can literally train skill sets, you can't train values. And then when they come into our company, our values are operationalized. So what that means is they're not just a document that you have to review every year. They are everywhere. When we start a team meeting, someone reads one of the values. And we're like, damn, that's cool. I've never heard it said that way. And then everyone shares what they heard differently. We have a Slack bot that goes off every Friday, like Acknowledger Friday, like who do you want to acknowledge for a value? So that our values are fully embedded into the company culture, which I think is something that I think a lot of people don't do well. Because when you have that, honestly, getting people to do things and be motivated, it's so easy when people have the right values. Like you don't follow. I've never followed people up in the past. Like they would like outdo their role descriptions. They're like, role description, like I've done this and this, and so I think that's really huge and something I think is massive. And then once they are in our company, because we're a transformation company, we do a huge amount of profiling. So we use Gallup Strengths, we use Enneagram, and we use Colby, and we as the company pay for them to do all of those. And then the coolest thing that we do with that, so we understand who they are as a human. So we have the context of the company culture, and then we have who they are as a human, and then they create what's called a user profile. So there's like Briony's user profile, how to use me basically, right? But truly that's where they declare how they like to be worked with. So in the user profile, there's like the times they like to work, when they're most creative, their greatest accomplishments in their life, their dreams for the next 5 years. Like one guy we hired, it was so cool, and the greatest accomplishment, it said my wife, like and I was just like when I read it, I was like, I feel like I understand who this big teddy bear is, right? But I didn't experience him that way until I saw his user profile. And so then the user profile was, what I love to do, my zone of genius, what I'm good at. So those are kind of, is that helpful tools? Like those are like our real pillars when we hire. Yeah.
Hello, my name is João. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. I found quite interesting you saying that you were oriented both to people and to process. And normally coaches are oriented to people and don't think about the process. But then I remember that a coach is original. The term coach is a process of transformation or moving a person from one side to another. So it was very interesting. My question was, this is a business. I'm a management consultant, and I have quite similar challenges because we try to sell value, but the client mostly buys us hours of work. Okay, and the problem is when the client sees us as hours of work, it's very difficult to scale a business. So my question is, how could you? And normally that's the reason why coaches work independently, not in companies. So my first question was, how could you scale the business? Yep. And the second one is, the coaching profession is something where you establish a strong connection between the coach and the coachee. Yeah. And eventually, the coaches, if they work in an organization, they can steal the coaches and create their own business. So these were the questions. Thank you.
Okay, great questions. So the first one was just so you run, the first one was you have an hourly model. How do you actually then scale that and transmute value? So I did do a lot of money mindset work. I just have to really reiterate that because I came from billable hours, right? Thinking about, I used to clock like when I'd run to the toilet. It was like pause the timer and run back, like in corporate law, not even joking. So like I was completely in a billable hour model. So I fully understand that. Value became about transformation and the big questions for our customers, because we would charge anywhere from 2 to 20 to 30K for our programs, and sometimes just like light touch point. They could pay us 20,000 and there could be just a few calls. And it was coming to a place where really doing so much work around the customer and the result that we would get them and what that result is worth to them. So we use a distinction called ROI and COI. So ROI is when you think about your customer, you think about the return that they can get from that result. So for example, we had this like women's development program. It was just $2,000 for high-performing females to redesign their career. They thought that was a lot of money at the time, especially in the New Zealand market. It was like, what? They wanted to pay $40 when I did market research. Right? I was like, it's $2,000. So, but the result to them, so there was only 8 one-hour calls, so not, and they were group calls with 30 to 40 people. So per hour, how would you justify $2,000? But the result to that customer, like she's a high-performing female in the wrong career path, and she stays there another 5 years. That and then a possible career jump into the right thing. Like I made millions going into my actual dharma and my gifts, right? And imagine I'd just still be on a legal salary. So the shift was the ROI is the return on investment that they'll get from that. So you got to write that down, and that's got to be all through your marketing and your messaging. So the ROI is the return, but also more importantly is the COI. So what does it cost the customer to not work with you, right? So it's not, because it's nothing really about the hours. Everything's about the outcomes and the results. And so for example, with ours, it was like, cool, if she didn't do this, I'm giving one example, this program, she does another 10 years in this career, she completely limits her earning potential, then she burns out because she's in the wrong career path. Like that's probably a $200,000 problem. And so when you map it out, you start to see the value of the problem that you solve, right? So it's less about the hours and it becomes about the problem. And then you have to shift all your marketing around the ROI, the COI, and the value of the problem. And if you think about the problem you solve, you always want to be solving at least a 6-figure problem, right? You want to solve a problem that's like 100K minimum, because that's what people will pay even 5 to 10K for. So that was huge. I think that gives some insight on that. And you just got to stand in that worth. And when people say that's ridiculous, and people would count me down like, okay, 2,000, 8 calls, that's this much per call. And I was like, you're doing the wrong math, right? And then I'd teach them ROI, COI math. The other question was about coaches running away with your clients.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, it happens. It happened. I think I've got an alternate perspective. You can put NDAs, you can put non-competes, you can do whatever you want in your contracts. At the end of the day, if people want to leave your I don't believe it sucks. It happened. I think you should have some form of protection, that like some element of protecting your intellectual property. But in my experience, I spent probably 2 years trying to control that. And in the end, my darling partner just gave me insight, like it's all towards the same mission. If you really believe in transformation, Briony, and you really believe in everyone having amazing coaches, then why do you care? If a customer wants to go with them and they are forwarding an industry that, we were at the forefront of the coaching industry at the time, like, why do you care? Is it really yours to control? And I would say letting go of that was the most freeing thing, because it can kill a company culture. If everyone starts focusing on that one person who left and stole people, and it ruins everything. So I would say, like, for me, it was like a complete surrender. I'm not saying just give away all your IP and, but yeah, I think it's like coming back to the bigger picture. Is like if you believe in what you do, then every person doing what you do is still forwarding your entire industry. And then build a culture so good that no one wants to leave, But it happens. They see dollar signs, they're like, oh, they're okay. They do their math, whatever math they do. And yeah, we've had that. And then to be honest, a bunch of them came back. They went and they had a go in a similar industry, and they were like, damn, that was really hard. I'd like to be a coach again. So Yeah, I think it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last question, Mike.
Thank you. Hi, thanks so much. I'm Mike. So I'm fascinated by starting and growing service businesses, and yours is one of the toughest to start and grow, actually. So two questions. First of all, you mentioned you had a lot of good traction on the Wednesday cafe workshops, and that's how we kind of snowballed from there. So I would be curious to hear what would you suggest if anyone here or the audience online wants to start a coaching business. How would you suggest they start a business like that, and how to kind of create that snowball effect? Because it seems that you just created a community around you, and then that spread out. So that's question number one: how to start.
Okay.
Question number two is, it also seemed, and that kind of taps into that conversation about hiring, that you productized your coaching in a way, meaning that you were able to scale it.
Yeah.
And for a lot of coaches that I talk to, they're like, well, no, I'm the coach. I'm the transformation for my clients. How do I actually hire other coaches and teach them and give them the same skills so that it's a kind of, transferable skill for them as well, so that we can get the results for our clients. They're not they're my clients, but they're not my coach. I'm not coaching them directly. It's my coach who's coaching them. So what did you create processes and frameworks? You mentioned a lot about frameworks, but how did that look from the inside?
Yeah, of course. So I played to my strengths. So and also with AI and everything, I like community, these things will be massive. But I also have to say that I've been hired as a specialist who, community was huge for me. That's what built the business, for sure. Something we used to do at the end of our programs, we were confronting tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand. For those who don't know, that's like when you don't be successful. You do not want to be successful. You do not want to be seen to be bettering yourself. You be quiet, be humble. That's the culture we existed in when we started the company. So one of my big things was to go up against that culture, because I was like, if I buy into that, I'm only going to get private clients. No one's ever going to share what we do because they're embarrassed. And so I was like, right, it has to be cool. It has to be fun. It has to be a great brand. So everything for me was about being proud of doing this type of work. And I had to be the first person to lead that way. So we started to teach our students how to be incredible communicators of the impact of our work and be proud of that. And we would have these graduations. So 30 or 40 people would graduate a program. There'd be 5 support coaches and me, and I still delivered some stuff in the program as well, one weekly call, but I didn't do all the direct coaching anymore. And we would have these graduations, and people could invite their family and their friends, and people would invite their brother that they hadn't talked to in 10 years to the graduation. And there would just be Zoom calls of entire flats of women there to support the woman who had done the program. Yeah, it was just phenomenal. And for me, that was about building something that was bigger than just the program, and that was a huge thing. So community was huge. That said, I have been hired as a specialist to go into other companies to help them with their community strategy, and I really don't believe that if you don't believe in community and you don't love community and you don't care about community, don't do it. It's someone was like, cool, so can we tack it on the end and charge more for the community? I was like, wow, you really don't get it. It's the soul of it. And if that's not your design and that's not how you work, don't feel like you have to do it. For me, it was a passion. For me, transformation was really lonely. I had no friends. Everyone thought I was absolutely bonkers. And I left my relationship. I left my job. I would go to these seminars alone. I would come home alone. It was so lonely that when I built Untapped, I was like, no one's going to do it on their own. Everyone's going to have a friend. By the end of our thing, people lived in homes that were graduates of our work. People got jobs because their wife did the program and the person interviewing knew the program, and it was all about that for me. So I think that's something I would say, just find your gift and give that when you build. Don't copy a strategy, especially when you start. Try to find your own unique way. I didn't know any other way to do it. I hadn't learned from people yet. Some of my best stuff was from before I had actually learned. And the other question, sorry, Mike? Oh, productizing. Yeah, so productizing came naturally to me. I loved it because of the process and the systems brain. I'm like COO, geek ops. I've got so many operating manuals. It's ridiculous. Like, just as how my brain also works. So how it actually looked, I know there's a whole thing around like, there's a little bit of a bait and switch. I think if you're marketing and saying like, oh, I'm the coach, and then they get in there and they're never coached by you, I don't think that's fair. Ours was very clear. I still coach. I ran 1 call a week, but we have a team of graduates and coaches who support you more directly. So ours was marketed very clearly around what it was. They were trained, we had coaching manuals. So like, getting into the nitty gritty, but there was like a full document about who our customer was, the avatar, the problems that customer faced, and how we coached that customer. So whilst each coach would have their style, for sure, we had like yoga teacher styles and Tony Robbins student styles, and like we had different styles of coaches. There was a manual and there was a process to how we coach that student, mainly because you can't have people go completely rogue and start coaching on like higher powers when the person just needs to get in action. That's a very different problem. So there's like, I created a lot around like, if this person has this challenge, we coach this way. And but then everyone brought their flavor. And honestly, what I found in the end is like, they were better coaches than me because they were closer to the customer. They were closer to the problem. They had their own transformation from the process. They understood the community. The community felt safer with the coaches sometimes than me. They wouldn't want to tell me stuff because it's like, don't annoy Briony, don't tell Briony, but we'll tell the coaches. So the coaches, yeah, they were better than me in the end, you know, because they really remembered so clearly what the problem was that they were working on. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Great note to end on. Thank you very much, Briony.